Hey everybody, welcome to the next edition of Take 5. And today I want to talk about shifting from an investigation to a mediation. Now, of course, most policies, most procedures, most regulatory bodies, they all have the ability to resolve things informally. These things are sometimes written into policies, but many times it's not contemplated by either a regulator or in a workplace situation. And so one of the things that I like to do when I'm doing an investigation, and many of our other people in our company that do investigations will find very early on as they speak to complainants and respondents, or in the case of a federally regulated matter, the principal party and the responding party, they very quickly learn that neither of these individuals wants the other to, suffer a disciplinary outcome. They just want behavior to stop. And sometimes because of that, there's an openness there to say, well, maybe we can figure this out. Now, again, going back to the federally regulated matters, mediation or conciliation is something that is typically offered early on, and investigation happens if that is something that's rejected by the principal party, who is the one that is driving the matter. In other cases, sometimes, in a provincially regulated jurisdiction, people will just immediately go to investigation. And what we often find, because we are investigators and mediators, what we often find is that in talking to the parties, there's room to negotiate. There's room to solve the issues. And investigation is not always going to be the best way to resolve a matter. Oftentimes, there is lots of wiggle room. You'll talk to the person who made the complaint and they'll say, well, I just want them to behave differently. I just want things to be a little better. I'm not looking for anyone to get in trouble. And you talk to the person responding and it's like, yeah, when I think back about it now, I realize maybe I could have done things differently. Maybe I could have responded a little differently when they came to me with the concern. And as soon as you start to hear these things, it's a trigger, right? To start looking at different ways of doing things, to start looking at alternative dispute resolution. And, there's different names for it, facilitation, conciliation, mediation, all the shuns. But, these things have a way of really helping to resolve issues without involving a whole bunch of other people, without making it into something bigger than it ever needed to be. Now, of course, there will be cases that are absolutely inappropriate for any kind of conciliation or mediation. And of course, the first one that comes to my mind typically is sexual harassment. I mean, we want to make sure that we're not re-victimizing people or putting people in situations that aren't appropriate to be put in. And sometimes the situation that's being complained about is severe enough or egregious enough that an investigation is absolutely necessary. A thorough investigation is absolutely necessary. But there are cases where we can find a way to resolve the conflict without going down the path of investigation. I think it's something that organizations need to think about and investigators need to be alert to. If you're an investigator and you find yourself in a situation where you're hearing these kinds of acknowledgments or comments made by, particularly when they're unsolicited by the parties that are, involved in the issue, it should be an opportunity to have that conversation with them. Say, look, I can't promise you anything, but maybe we can look at going down the road of a mediation or a conciliation, and that might be a better way to resolve this issue. So just think about it, consider it, think about the possibilities. There's always, as they say, more than one way to skin a cat, although I mean no disrespect to animal lovers out there. There's always different ways that we can resolve issues, that we can solve problems, and we don't always have to go leaping to an investigation. Investigations can be cumbersome, they can be intrusive, they take a long time. I recently had a matter that involved a number of different parties. It started off as basically 2 investigations. We shifted gears, we moved it over to it being a mediation, and we were able to get everything resolved in an afternoon. And everybody's a lot happier for it. So something to consider moving forward. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Take 5, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.